I never liked the basement, but I didn't fear it either. At least not at first. When I bought the house, the inspector called it unfinished but solid. Concrete walls, exposed beams, one dangling bulb in the center, the kind of basement people forget about. I told myself I'd eventually turn it into a storage space. Maybe a home gym, maybe nothing at all. The truth was, I avoided it. Not consciously, I just didn't go down there unless I had to. Sometimes, standing at the top of the stairs, I'd feel this faint pressure behind my eyes, like the air itself was heavier near the door. I chalked it up to old house vibes. Everyone feels weird about basements. That night, though, the house didn't feel old. It felt aware. The power cut out at 12:47 a.m. I remember because I checked my phone the second the silence hit. One moment I was half asleep on the couch, the TV murmuring to itself, and the next, nothing. No hum, no light, no background noise at all. The quiet was so complete it rang. I sat up, listening. Outside, the streetlights were dead too. No cars, no wind. Even the refrigerator, which usually made this faint clicking noise, was gone. That's when I heard the knock. Not loud, not urgent, just two soft taps. They came from below me, from the basement ceiling. I didn't move at first. I told myself it was pipes contracting. Houses make noise when the power goes out. Everyone knows that. Then it happened again. Knock, knock, knock. Slow, intentional. Each knock evenly spaced, like whoever or whatever was down there had all the time in the world. I stood up, heart pounding, and stared at the basement door. It was open. I never left it open. The stairwell beyond it was swallowed by darkness. My phone's flashlight barely touched the first few steps before dissolving into black. I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hello?" The sound died before it reached the bottom. Something shifted down there. Not footsteps, not exactly. More like something adjusting its weight. Like a body repositioning itself on the floor. I should have closed the door. I know that now. But curiosity is a quiet kind of stupid. It doesn't scream at you. It whispers. I stepped closer. The air spilling out of the basement was wrong. Cold, yes, but also damp, thick, and faintly metallic, like rust and old water and something sour underneath. I took one step down. The stair creaked. Below me, something creaked back. Not the same sound, not wood, more like cartilage bending. My flashlight flickered, then steadied long enough to show the basement floor. Footprints. Bare footprints pressed into the dust. They weren't human. Too long, too narrow. Too many toes. 6, maybe 7 on one foot. The impressions circled the support beams over and over, overlapping, frantic, then stopped directly beneath the staircase, right under where I stood. The light died. In the darkness, something breathed. Not like a person, no rhythm, no warmth, just a controlled expansion and contraction of air, as if breathing was something it had learned instead of needed. I felt it then, that certainty. I wasn't supposed to be seeing this. I stumbled backward, my heel slipping, nearly sending me tumbling down the stairs. I caught myself and scrambled upward, slamming the basement door shut with more force than I thought I had. Something hit the door immediately. The impact rattled the frame. Dust shook loose from the hinges. The handle jerked violently, twisting back and forth like something on the other side was testing it. Then, slowly, it stopped. I stayed there, pressed against the door, every muscle locked, listening. Minutes passed, then longer. No scratching, no footsteps, no knocking. Just silence. Eventually, the power came back on. Lights flickered. The house resumed its normal noises, as if nothing had happened. I told myself it was stress, sleep deprivation, my brain inventing things in the dark. The next morning, I opened the basement door. Daylight flooded the stairs. The basement was clean, no footprints, no dust disturbances, no marks on the door. Nothing, except for the bottom step. Written into the thin layer of dust were 4 words, carved deep enough that someone had pressed hard. You weren't alone. I moved out 2 weeks later. The new owners called me once. They asked if the basement door was supposed to lock from the inside, and I didn't answer. Because sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and the power's on and everything feels normal, I still hear it. Not knocking anymore, just breathing right behind me. I always hated our basement, but not for the usual reasons. It wasn't damp. It didn't smell like mold. There were no spiders or exposed wires. It was finished, carpeted, and warmer than the rest of the house in winter. My dad used to joke that it was the safest room we had. After he died, my mom started spending more time down there. At first, it made sense. The basement had been his workshop. His old shelves were still lined with labeled boxes, half-finished projects, and notebooks filled with cramped handwriting only he could read. Mom said being down there made her feel closer to him. That was before she started sleeping there. The first night I noticed, I woke up thirsty and passed her bedroom. The door was open, the bed neatly made. I figured she'd fallen asleep on the couch. But when I checked the living room, it was empty. I found her in the basement. She'd dragged one of the old recliners down there and was sitting in it, perfectly still, staring at the far wall. The lights were off except for the single bulb above the stairs. "Mom?" I whispered. She didn't react. I cleared my throat and tried again, louder this time. She slowly turned her head toward me, like her neck resisted the movement. "Oh," she said softly, "I didn't hear you." Her voice sounded flatter, like she was reading a line instead of speaking. I asked why she was down there so late. She smiled, but her eyes stayed fixed on my chest, not my face. "He likes it when I'm here," she said. I assumed she meant my dad. The next few weeks, she started changing in small ways. She stopped watching TV, stopped listening to music. She barely ate unless I reminded her. And every night around the same time, she went downstairs. Sometimes I heard her talking. At first, it sounded like quiet murmuring, the kind you make when you're thinking out loud. But as days passed, it became clearer. She was having full conversations. I'd pause at the top of the basement stairs, listening. "Yes, I remember," she'd say. "No, I didn't forget." I know I shouldn't have." I asked her who she was talking to. She looked genuinely confused by the question. "You," she said. "Who else would it be?" I laughed it off, but the way she said it, so matter-of-fact, made my stomach tighten. Things escalated after the smell started. It wasn't rot or mold. It was metallic, like pennies left in the sun. I noticed it drifting up from the basement vents and lingering in the hallway. One morning, I found her scrubbing the basement floor with a stiff brush, her hands raw and bleeding. "Mom, stop," I said, grabbing her wrists. "You're hurting yourself." She yanked her hands free with surprising strength. "It's not clean," she snapped. Her eyes were wide, pupils slightly uneven. "He can't come up until it's clean." That night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time since I was a kid. At 2:17 a.m., something heavy hit my door. Once, then again. Slow, deliberate knocks followed. Not frantic, not angry, patient. "Open the door," my mother said from the other side. Her voice sounded wrong, lower, stretched thin, like someone else was pressing it through her throat. I didn't move. "I know you're awake," she continued. "He wants to see you." The handle twisted gently, back and forth, back and forth. I didn't sleep. The next day, she acted normal, made breakfast, asked about my plans, even laughed at one of my jokes. But there was something new behind her eyes. Expectation. That evening, the power went out. The basement light flicked on anyway. I stood at the top of the stairs, heart pounding, watching the glow pulse faintly, as if breathing. From below, I heard the sound of something being dragged across concrete. Then my mother started crying, not sobbing, whisper crying, apologizing. "I didn't mean to," she said. "I was lonely." A second voice answered her. I couldn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. It was pleased. Her crying stopped. She laughed. I ran to the breaker panel, flipped switches at random, and the basement light finally died. The laughter cut off instantly. Behind me, something exhaled. I turned around. My mother stood at the end of the hallway, smiling too wide, her head tilted at an angle that hurt to look at. "You shouldn't turn off the lights," she said gently. "He doesn't like being ignored." Her shadow didn't match her movements. I grabbed my keys and ran. I didn't come back until morning, when sunlight felt like armor. The house was quiet, too quiet. The basement door was open. At the bottom of the stairs, I saw fresh scratches carved into the wall. Tall ones, too high to be hers, and written over and over again in my dad's handwriting, etched deep into the concrete, "Let me back up." I don't know where my mother is now, but every night when the house settles and the pipes creak, I hear footsteps coming from beneath the floor. Slow, familiar, climbing. I tried to convince myself it was over. That morning, sunlight filled the house like nothing bad had ever happened. The scratches on the basement wall were still there, but my mother was gone. No blood, no struggle. Her phone was on the kitchen counter, wiped clean, screen dark. I told the police she'd wandered off. "Grief does strange things," I said. They nodded the way people do when they already have an answer in mind. They didn't go into the basement. I did. I don't know why. Maybe part of me hoped I'd find her sitting in that old recliner again, blank-eyed but breathing. Maybe I needed proof that what I heard wasn't just my mind breaking under pressure. The basement felt different in daylight. The air was warmer than it should have been, thick and damp, like a breath held too long. The light flickered even though the power was stable. Every step I took sounded wrong, muted, swallowed, as if the room didn't want to acknowledge me. The writing on the wall was gone, not scrubbed, gone. In its place was a single phrase carved deep into the concrete, letters uneven, desperate. She let me in. Behind me, the basement door creaked shut. I froze. The handle didn't turn. There was no slam, just a soft, final click. Then I heard her voice, not from behind me, from everywhere. "You came back," my mother said. "I knew you would." The light above the stairs dimmed. The shadows stretched longer than they should have, pooling at the corners of the room. The recliner shifted slightly on its own, leather sighing as if someone had just stood up. "I tried to keep him down here," she continued. Her voice trembled, but not with fear, with regret. "But he missed you." Something moved in the far corner. Tall, too thin. It didn't step forward. It unfolded. joints bending in directions that didn't match human anatomy. The smell of metal flooded the room, sharp enough to sting my eyes. I backed into the workbench, hands searching for anything solid. My mom wouldn't do this, I said, more to myself than to whatever was listening. A sound like a laugh echoed through the basement. She didn't, the thing replied. Its voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It vibrated inside my skull, rearranging thoughts as it spoke. She invited me, it continued. I wore what she gave me. The light snapped on. My mother stood at the base of the stairs. She looked almost normal. Same clothes as before, same posture. But her eyes were wrong. They reflected the light like glass, unblinking, unfeeling. Her mouth moved half a second after the voice spoke. I just wanted him back, she said, and he said he was lonely. The thing stepped closer. With each movement, my mother's body lagged behind it, like a shadow struggling to keep up with its owner. He remembers you, it said. He remembers every time you came down here, every time you listened through the door. The memories hit me all at once, standing at the top of the stairs as a kid, afraid of the dark below, feeling watched, feeling called. I had never been afraid of the basement. The basement had been waiting. My mother took a step forward. The sound her foot made wasn't right. Wet. Heavy. I kept it fed, she said quietly, with memories, with grief, with myself. Her smile stretched, skin pulling too tight over her teeth. But it wants you whole. The shadows surged. I ran. I don't remember reaching the stairs. I don't remember climbing them. I only remember the feeling of hands, too many, too cold, brushing my ankles as I slammed the door behind me. The house shook. Something hit the basement door hard enough to rattle the walls. Once, twice, then silence. I left that house that night. I burned every photo I owned of my parents. I moved states, changed my number, changed my name. I never stayed anywhere with the basement. For a while, that was enough, until last week. I woke up at 2:17 a.m. The air smelled like pennies, and from beneath my apartment floor, I heard my mother's voice, soft and familiar, speaking from a place that should not exist. He's ready to come up now, she said. The floor creaked. Slow footsteps began climbing. I never liked the basement, but I told myself that was normal. Every house has a basement that feels wrong, too quiet, too cold, a place where sounds don't echo the way they should. When my wife and I bought the house, the realtor laughed when I hesitated at the door at the top of the stairs. Old homes always feel creepy downstairs, she said. You'll get used to it. She was wrong. The basement door was solid wood, painted white, with a brass knob that always felt colder than the rest of the house. The first night we slept there, I woke up at 3:07 a.m. to the sound of something shifting beneath us. Not a bang, not a thump, just a slow, deliberate scrape, like furniture being dragged an inch at a time. I told myself it was pipes. I always told myself it was pipes. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floor, exposed beams, one bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, pulling long shadows across the walls. The previous owners had left behind shelves, a workbench, and a tall metal cabinet bolted into the corner. No matter how many times I went down there, the air smelled damp and metallic, like old coins and rain-soaked earth. The first thing that bothered me was the door. No matter how carefully I shut it, I would come back upstairs later and find it cracked open just a few inches. enough to show darkness between the stairs and the kitchen floor. My wife blamed pressure changes. I started placing a chair under the handle. One morning, the chair was on its side. That was when I began checking the basement every night before bed. I'd flick on the light, scan the corners, listen. The silence down there felt thick, heavy, like it was pressing against my ears. And sometimes, only sometimes, I felt like the basement was listening back. A week later, I noticed footprints in the dust. Bare footprints. They started at the bottom of the stairs and ended at the metal cabinet. I didn't tell my wife. Instead, I cleaned the floor and convinced myself I'd imagined them. Stress can do strange things. New house, new responsibilities, old fears resurfacing. Then the knocking started. Not from the walls, not from the pipes. From beneath the floor. 3 slow knocks. Always in sets of 3. Always around 3 a.m. I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, counting the seconds between each knock. When I finally worked up the nerve to go downstairs one night, the basement was silent, but the cabinet door was open. Inside there was nothing but darkness. No shelves, no storage, just a square hole cut into the concrete floor. The edges were jagged, like they'd been broken by hand. I called the previous owner the next day. There was a long pause on the line when I mentioned the cabinet. "That wasn't there when we sold the house," he said, his voice dropped. "You shouldn't go down there anymore." Before I could ask why, he hung up. That night, the basement door didn't just open, it swung wide. The knocking was louder than ever, echoing through the house, shaking the floor beneath our bed. My wife finally woke up, asking what was wrong, but I couldn't speak. I just stared at the hallway, where darkness spilled out from the open door like a shadow that didn't belong. Something began climbing the stairs. Not footsteps, fingernails. Slow, careful, testing each step. I grabbed a flashlight and told my wife to lock herself in the bedroom. Every part of me screamed not to go down there, but some part of me, deep and buried, felt like it had been waiting for this. The basement light flickered as I descended. The air was colder than I'd ever felt it, my breath fogging in front of me. The cabinet was gone. In its place was the hole, and from inside it, something whispered my name. Not in a voice, but in my own thoughts, like it had always been there. I leaned over the edge and shined the flashlight down. The beam didn't hit the bottom, but I saw hands gripping the concrete walls. Pale, too long, too many fingers. "They buried us," the voice said. "Now, we live between the floors." The knocking stopped. The lights went out. When I came to, I was lying at the top of the stairs. The basement door was closed, locked. My wife was gone. The police searched the house, the basement, the yard. They found nothing. No hole, no cabinet. Just a normal, empty basement. They say my wife left. But every night at 3:07 a.m., I hear 3 knocks beneath the floor. And sometimes, when the house is very quiet, I hear fingernails climbing the stairs, stopping just behind the door, waiting for me to open it.